What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, I wanted to showcase some Claydol gameplay in the Open Great League. This Pokemon has always been kind of a joke in the sense that every single moveset update, they give it some sort of useless move that is not ever going to help it out. But this recent moveset update, where they made Rock Tomb one of the best attacks in the game, actually has put Claydol into the limelight. This Pokemon is pretty strong with Mud Slap as its fast move. Ice Beam is good coverage. Rock Tomb as well is one of the best attacks they've ever added into the game. And because Ice Beam is such good coverage here, I do want it on my Claydol. But as you can see here, this is going to be a nightmare to try to TM. It's like got 8 or 9 moves on it, which means that in theory it doesn't take that many TMs to get, but because the TM system is so broken here, I keep re-rolling the same moves over and over again. I think at the end of the day, it took me like 24 TMs to get Ice Beam on my Claydol, so while I don't think it's a necessary move to have, it is a great coverage attack for the grass types, for the opposing ground types as well, so I did want it. I wanted to try it out today. There it is. Ice Beam finally has been reached, so we can get into the battles and see what Claydol can do. So yeah, getting into the first match of the day, we're going to see Claydol up against a Malamar. Keep in mind, while this is a dark type into a psychic type Pokemon here, we also resist their sideways, which means while this matchup might on paper seem kind of bad, we aren't taking too much fast food pressure. Foul Play does not one-shot us, and we have access to Rock Tomb, which, as we all know, is able to debuff attack stats, make it so I take a lot less damage, and Claydol should be able to win this matchup if they do let this move through. They do opt to let that move go, and they save a lot of energy on Malamar. They swap out to Cradily, and since I can't quite reach an Ice Beam before a Grass Knot will be reached, I'm instead going to go for the Rock Tomb and then swap out to my Shadow Galarian Weezing. Rock Tomb does do quite a bit of chip damage to them, but they're going to have Rock Tombs for my own Weezing, which means my attack stat will be lowered. With that said, Weezing is such a trooper here. It can survive 2, especially after that attack drop against them. And now we're going to spam out as many charge moves as I can against this Pokemon. I try to CMP here. I thought they might throw on alignment, which means now we gave them a full bullet seed through. But because we have back-to-back charge moves, they're still going to be forced to throw this energy. It might not even knock us out, though, if they land that next Rock Tomb. So at this point, Brutal Swing will either draw the shield or just get a KO against that Cradily. Comes a Blastoise. This Pokemon could potentially be tricky here, but instead of going for Sludge, I just want to get as much chip damage as I can against them. At this point, they don't want to shield a debuff Brutal Swing, right? So if I can do enough chip damage against them, then we might be able to win this game just with a little bit of fast move pressure, and by catching moves as well, it's going to help us out quite a bit. Hydro Cannon does come through. Blastoise could have Ice Beam, but most of the time they're going to be running Skull Bash here, so if they are on Skull Bash, we want to shield up that attack. Even if they're on Ice Beam, we definitely want to shield that up here too. In comes an Aerial Ace. At this point, I don't care if they no shield. They have not boosted their defense stat just yet if they do have access to Skull Bash, so it would still basically knock them out here. They do shield that attack up. In comes another charge move here from Blastoise. It is just another Hydro Cannon bait. Once again, their defense, though, has not been increased, meaning this Aerial Ace is going to do a substantial amount of damage. In comes the charge move. Our opponent does opt to let it go. At this point, this Blastoise is so low. They're basically in fast move farm down range. Same with this Malamar. They do throw a charge attack that they saved from that lead matchup. Foul Play does do quite a bit of chip damage, but I can swap out here, go for a super effective Fairy Wind down, and potentially even Fairy Wind down the Blastoise to win this match. GG's for our opponent there. Very close endgame, but luckily we had just a bit of HP there across the board on all of our Pokemon. Next game, I'm going to see a bit of a tricky lead, I guess, with a Guzzlord, but honestly, it's not the worst matchup for Claydol, but I do have 2 Pokemon with Fairy-type fast food pressure in the backline, so I might as well just try to come in with this and bait out potentially a tricky matchup. We do see that we bait out a Talonflame here. I throw instantly with an Aerial Ace to try to bait that I don't have Acrobatics, but our opponent is going for a charge move here, likely meaning they are going to expect Acrobatics after I end up shielding this fly. In comes our charge move here. I'm going to try to go for a bait this time. Do they shield this attack up? Acrobatics definitely would knock them out here. Aerial Ace comes through. Our opponent, though, they opt to let it go, and Talonflame is always a tricky Pokemon for this team, but it's going to be especially tricky now that they have let that move go, and they are going to be able to farm us all the way down, keeping all of this energy for potentially whatever is in the back. With that said, I will drain energy with my Claydol. I know it's kind of a useless Pokemon right now with that Guzzlord, and if they only go for a fly, we don't take that much damage. There's a chance here we might survive if they throw a Brutal Swing. Crunch probably would be enough, but Brutal Swing I don't think would be quite enough damage to take out our Claydol. It is able to survive. Go for a Rock Tomb against this Pokemon. This won't get a knockout or anything. In fact, I'm going to undercharge it here, but the attack drop is actually kind of crucial here. I'm going to be able to go for a full Fairy Wind down. Maybe I should have gone for even more of an undercharge, saying I'm going to take this charge move anyway, and this will be able to give us a lot of energy, hopefully against a Pokemon we might have a little bit of play into in the backline. Talon is still around, but it's in Fairy Wind down range, and we see their final Pokemon is yet another Fire type, while we do have resisted Fairy Winds into this Pokemon. Shadow on Shadow, Sludge is going to do so much damage, and now I think I just have to go for a fast move down if I want any chance to win this game. I transfer the Incinerate damage over to our Weezing because I don't want to be in range where one more Incinerate knocks us out, and because I did that, we should be able to Incinerate this down before taking another Incinerate from them, and this Talon will get one parting fast move off against us, but this Typhlosion gets Fairy Winded down, and we get a nice little Galarian Weezing sweep there in the back. Next game, I'm going to see Claydol up against a Swalot, a very good lead matchup. Her backline also would not ever want to see this Pokemon, so hopefully I keep switch here this game. In the Say Swap, we see a Spiritomb, we have our Shadow Galarian Weezing, which in theory is a good answer to this, but because we don't have super effective charging pressure, only non-stab Brutal Swings actually, we're not able to one-shot them here, and they might go for a Rock Tomb, which could debuff our attack stat and make it so this farm down is going to be a lot harder. They actually go for a Shadow Ball here. They wanted to guarantee a shield, and because we do shield that attack up, I will be able to reach another move without getting knocked out, but because we are down shields as well, this could still be a tricky endgame depending on what their final Pokemon is going to be. Down goes the Spiritomb, but in comes that Swalot, and because they are a Poison-type Pokemon, our Fairy Winds are going to be resisted. These Brutal Swings will add up over time, but because this Pokemon is just so bulky, even a Shadow Galarian Weezing is not going to get a 3-shot here. I'd need 4 Charge Moves if I wanted any chance to take them out. In comes yet another Brutal Swing. They have so much energy on the Swalot, it looks like at this point, they are just committing to a full Mudshot down. They're going to have basically back-to-back Ice Beams, which means our Claydol will have to watch out. They already have a shield advantage, so whatever is in the back hopefully is a good matchup for us. I mean, it kind of is. It's a Flying-type Pokemon into our Jumpluff, but it's also a Dark-type into our Fairy Wind user. But I think that with how much spam this Pokemon has, it has access to Fly, right? And the shield advantage and the energy lead makes it so I will not be able to reach 3 Aerial Aces before this Bombardier will be able to knock us out. I know they have so much energy on that Swalot, but they're also pretty low, so my win condition this game right now is to try our best to knock out this Bombardier before taking a charge move, but if we do take a charge move on our Claydol, then we're going to have to try our best to call when that Swalot is going to come back in, because I need to catch an Ice Beam if I want any chance to win this game. In comes a charge attack here. I know it will be a Fly, and I know it will knock us out. I could try to catch a move against this Bombardier, but it's going to be so hard to do, saying we are a 3-turn into a 2-turn move, and our opponent throws very properly in the middle of our fast move, meaning now I have to call that the combo play is coming. That is my one win condition here. Our opponent, though, they don't go for it. I swap out for no apparent reason, and unfortunately end up losing that matchup there. All right, next game, we're going to see a Shadow Drapion in the lead up against our Claydol. A pretty good matchup here, obviously, but they do have Shadow Crunch or Shadow Aqua Tail into us that could do quite a bit of damage, which would be a little bit frustrating to deal with. They Say Swap a Lapras here, a Pokemon that I don't actually have a hard answer to on this team, although Claydol doesn't actually do that bad here. We resist the Psy Wave damage. If we shield up that first Sparkling Aria as well and get a Rock Tomb debuff into them, then this matchup isn't as bad as you might expect it to be. I go for the bold play of coming in with their Shadow Jumpluff. I know some Lapras are running Ice Beam, but I'm going to hope that the one on the Say Swap here is instead going to be running the Skull Bash attack. Honestly, it's a 50-50. They could run either move, but since they let that go, I would assume that probably means they are actually running Skull Bash there, and they did not feel like it was worth shielding up that attack, especially when they were debuffed. In comes a charge move from our Jumpluff. I bait the Acrobatics. It would basically one-shot if they end up no-shielding it, and since they do end up shielding that attack, now I can reach an Acrobatics against them. Am I going to get 2 shields against this Shadow Drapion with our Shadow Jumpluff? In comes the charge move. I guess we don't get the shield, we get a one-shot instead. That's even better. Our opponent at that point is not able to win the game. Mandibuzz not able to beat our Weezing in the back. Next matchup, a Scrafty in the lead. Another Pokemon that, well, honestly, Claydol doesn't have a terrible time into. We just have 2 better matchups in the back, and I do want to bait out potential core breakers. We end up baiting out, what was that, Mudslap Grimer, I think? A very interesting Pokemon. Obviously not a Pokemon that I want to see on my Weezing, but since this is non-stab Mudslap, and because Weezing is so spammy, if they don't throw any charge moves against us, I think I can actually knock them out with a 3rd Brutal Swing. In comes the 2nd charge move, and we are able to barely survive long enough to get a 3rd charge attack off, just because of how spammy this Pokemon is. Brutal Swing will get a knockout or a shield from this Grimer. They let it go. They had so much energy here, but I'm fine taking Switch advantage. Our opponent, though, they show that they didn't really care about Switch because they have a Claydol, another Pokemon, or a Corviknight rather, for a Claydol, which should be a decent matchup for them, right? Well, if they don't have Payback, it's actually not as good as you might expect. I'm going to shield just in case this is a Payback, and because I will debuff them anyway here, Rock Tomb will come through, but our opponent making a fantastic catch on their Scrafty. With that said, I know that I am desyncing the Switch clocks here, and I know that we're going to have potentially our Jumpluff into a Corviknight. It's not as bad of a matchup as you might think it would be. I know what you're thinking. There's a Steel and Flying type Pokemon against my Flying and Grass type. That is one of the worst typing matchups you could ever imagine. But here's the thing. As long as I stay outside of range where a single Sky Attack can knock us out, they're using Sand Attack as their fast move. It's not going to be able to easily farm us down here, so I knock out the Scrafty before they do any extra damage to us. And I mean, check out how much damage this Acrobatics is about to do if they let it go. We're going to throw the charge move. It does a solid 1/3 of their HP there, which honestly is kind of criminal damage, saying that it is resisted. At this point, if they no-shield this Aerial Ace, they're going to have to be in range where I can farm them all the way down with fast moves, so they are forced to shield up an Aerial Ace. I looked into this matchup, by the way, after this this battle. Who wins that 2-shield matchup? Do you think that Corviknight wins the 2-shield against Shadow Jumpluff? It does not. It's actually going to go to the jump off just barely, but somehow Shadow Jump off in the 2 shield can beat the Corviknight. At this point, all I need to do is land this Rock Tomb. I know I survived that Sky Attack because Claydol is pretty bulky here. Rock Tomb going to be thrown up against this Corviknight, and at this point, we're going to see why Corviknight, in my opinion, is such a joke. It can't beat 2 Pokemon that honestly, it should have a good matchup into both, but it is struggling to do anything in this match. All right, next game, Claydol into a Swallow. We had this lead earlier today. We ended up losing it, though, because it was like double Sucker Punch in the backline, and that was not great to see. This is going to be a much different game, though. They end up safe swapping with a Pangoro. This Pokemon by no means wants to see our Weezing. We end up going for a farm down here, especially because they went for a close combat. I think that Night Slash is more efficient in this matchup, especially because they got that defense drop against them, too. It means they only get to that one single charge move, and he comes at Swallow once again. And while we have seen in this matchup that these Brutal Swings don't do too much damage, because of my massive energy lead, first of all, I don't think they can mudshot us down here. And second of all, I think I might reach 4 charge attacks against them if they try to go for it. And comes our third Brutal Swing. This is doing so much damage to them right now. And honestly, if this ends up landing, I might be able to snipe down with a Mud Slap and drain all of their energy here. It doesn't quite do enough. Our opponent does reach a charge attack here, likely going to be a Sludge to knock us out, but I have another Brutal Swing. And what I want to do here is I want to guarantee that the Swallow goes down. If this Swallow ever gets knocked out, then I can guarantee whatever that final Pokemon is could be debuffed with a Rock Tomb. Brutal Swing does get a shield from them. I could shield this up, but at this point, I guess I'm fine just using my Claydol and my Jumpluff against whatever is in the backline. We've drained all of this energy from this Pokemon, and unfortunately for them, they have an Air Slash Mandibuzz in the backline. While Claydol wouldn't really want to see this if it was on Snarl, Air Slash is so much slower charging, and it's not super effective, which means that we can go for that Rock Tomb. We just show our Jumpluff here. Even though it's an Air Slash, we debuff them, so we can take out the Mandibuzz here with, once again, I guess our Grass and Flying-type Pokemon taking out the opposing Flyers. Next game going to be a Claydol in the lead. Our opponent did not want to play out that mirror matchup, though. They instantly swap in to a Cradily, and at this point, I don't really care about switch advantage. I instantly throw the Brutal Swing before they could potentially get a debuff off against us, because I want to make sure we can chip this down as much as we can, and in comes some more Bullet Seeds, in comes a Rock Tomb as well from this Cradily, which will do a decent amount of chip damage, but because Weezing at this point doesn't really need to win this matchup, all I want to do here is get the final shield or get as much damage against him as I can. I throw on alignment, I give him a full Bullet Seed through, which I shouldn't have done, but I wanted to guarantee that I got that move off before they could Rock Tomb us here. So while that might have been a misplay in the moment, I still think it was the right move. In comes a Rock Tomb. It does knock out our Weezing, but they're easily in Mud Slap downrange. And because our Jumpluff is so much better into that Claydol than our own Claydol, I don't really care about that switch advantage. And once again, we have Rock Tomb up against, I guess, what was that? Low Kicks in the backline. We have Rock Tomb for this Pokemon, which is going to draw a shield. And now shield advantage Shadow Jumpluff against 2 Pokemon extremely weak to Jumpluff. I think this game is going to be over. With that said, we know this Pokemon does have access to Rock Tomb, maybe even Ice Beam. So I will have to double shield against this Claydol just to make sure we can knock him out here. We get a shield with the Aerialist Bait, which is fantastic to see. What are they going to throw? Likely just going to be a Rock Tomb to lower our attack stat. And if they do, then we're going to have to throw 2 big charge moves if I want to knock them out. Acrobatics being thrown. Is this enough damage to put them into 2-shot range? Probably, because Acrobatics is one of the best moves in the game. Honestly, though, it's going to be a little bit closer than I'd like it to be. Likely do have to go for a full-on Acrobatics here, especially because they're going to get a second attack chop with this next Rock Tomb against us, which means that our Jumpluff's attack is kind of low, but Acrobatics is still an insane move, and we are going to be able to win this matchup still just using Shadow Jumpluff to not only knock out this Claydol, but that Low Kicks in the backline wants nothing to do with us. We knock them out here, in comes that Low Kicks, and in comes the top left. Next matchup, we're going to see Claydol up against Shadow Drapion. So once again, a pretty good matchup here, but if they do get an energy lead, it could be a little bit awkward, saying all of their charge move pressure is potentially super effective against us. We see a Dugong on the safe swap, a Pokemon that honestly I thought would not be around too much in this current meta. We see an instant Rock Tomb from us here because it is super effective, but it's also just like this Dugong is a Pokemon we don't have a hard answer to, right? So I'm going to stay in here for just a second, get as much Mud Slap damage as I can against them, and now that we've got a shield advantage, a debuff against them, and drained their energy, I think Weezing is going to be able to come in and at the very least try to neutralize this Pokemon. We can go for a no shield at this point. I know that Shadow Jumpluff isn't that bad into Shadow Drapion up shields, and because of that attack drop, this drill run does not one-shot us, and if that was an Icy Wind, I didn't want to shield that up either. I know at this point Sludge is going to come very close to knocking out, in fact, put them into range where we can get a nice farm down against them, and potentially reach a Sludge against that Shadow Drapion if it does come back in. In comes that Drapion, and we do have that Sludge ready to go. I think we're also outside of range where Poison Stings can knock us out before a second charge attack will be thrown. If that is the case, then our Weezing is going to do so much damage here. Sludge, even though it's resisted into Shadow Drapion, it just is such an efficient attack here. You can see it nearly gets the knockout, and now if we get one Mud Slap through, we can easily knock out that Shadow Drapion. With that said, they do swap in with their Azumarill, and at this point, although we don't have access to Energy Ball, I know that Jumpluff is taking no fast food pressure. We have a shield advantage, and we are so spammy here that we should be able to win this game. Acrobatics does end up getting a shield here, which is totally fine, though. We'll just double shield our Jump against this Azumarill, and we should be able to win this matchup just by going for straight nukes. We also have a bit of health and a bit of energy left over on our Claydol, but we do have to keep in mind they have a lot of energy themselves on that Shadow Drapion, which could potentially be scary depending on if they have Sludge Bomb. If they do, this game could be a little bit trickier, but I think we're still in a good spot either way, because we are not in range where anything would one-shot us here. Ice Beam once again gets shielded up, and our opponent does bring in the Shadow Drapion, but they are so low, I don't think they're going to get to a second charge attack here. Just a crunch gets thrown, we survive that, we Fairy Wind all the way down, and now we have an Acrobatics for this Azu, and we end up winning that matchup. All right, next game here, Claydol up against the opposing Claydol. Last time we saw this mirror matchup, they did end up instantly swapping out, which was kind of interesting. I doubt that's going to happen again this time, but we'll have to just wait and see with how they're going to play this out. In comes a charge attack here from my Claydol. We do win CMP, and we go for a very bold bait with this Rock Tomb. While I know Rock Tomb is not going to do any damage if it goes through, I wanted to make sure if I could to try to get any advantage out of this matchup as we could have. In comes a charge move from them. I got a debuff, so I don't need to worry about shielding this attack up. So we got a shield from them, and we were able to land or survive this Ice Beam and land an Ice Beam against them right now, which means we're getting a shield advantage and potentially switch advantage in this matchup. Ice Beam comes through and knocks out the Claydol, and unfortunately for us, in comes a Shadow Alolan Sandslash. Our backline is very weak to this Pokemon. We got a few Mud Slaps, which is pretty nice chip damage, but our Shadow Galarian Weezing doesn't really want to see it, but our Shadow Jumpluff wants to see it even less. In comes an Ice Punch here from the Shadow Alolan Sandslash, and their final Pokemon is revealed as yet another tricky Pokemon to see. Our Shadow Jumpluff has no play into this backline, so it's going to be a very tricky game one way or another. Sludge does end up landing, and it does a massive amount of damage here. I think that they're only going to go for a discharge against us, so I'm going to call this, and I'm going to try our best here to leverage energy on our Weezing against whatever they have in the back. I try to catch a move. I don't know if this is going to be a catch. At this point, I have to hope that it is just a discharge. If it is, there is still a good chance for us to win this one. We call the move, which is good to see, and now they might get an Acrobatics against us, but because we have so much energy here on Jumpluff and on Weezing, there is still some play for us in this endgame. In comes the discharge. I guess, did they not even have acrobatics? I don't even know at this point. And we're going to go for an acrobatics. Actually, this might have been an aerial ace bait. Either way, we're going to chip them down as much as we can. They call the aerial ace, which is a little bit awkward here. And in comes a charge attack here from this ace slash. I had to go for the acrobatics. I needed to guarantee a shield or guarantee that they threw energy before farming us all the way down. We have two back-to-back charge moves almost on our Weezing. Is Brutal Swing going to be enough damage to knock out this ace slash? We won the lead so hard, but at this point, this ace slash in the back has been such a pain to try to deal with. We go for this Brutal Swing. Is this enough to knock out, or will they survive it? In comes the charge move. Weezing not able to knock out, but we get a simultaneous KO. I guess getting a tie there in that matchup. GG's to our opponents. That was as close of a game as it gets. Next matchup, we're going to see an Azumarill in the lead up against our Claydol. And Azumarill is, not the best lead matchup for us to see, but honestly, it's also not really the worst. Azu into Claydol, I think you just win as the Claydol straight Rock Tomb in the ones. So really, I just want to bait out a tricky matchup in the back potentially and see what they have. They ended up coming in with a Morpeko, a Pokemon which definitely is not an answer to a Weezing, especially not down energy. We see a Psychic Fangs come through, and now we're going to throw a Sludge here to try to get another shield from them. In comes the Sludge, but a bit of a miscount by me made it so instead of going for a move one turn early, I ended up CMPing on this Psychic Fangs, which means now I have to go down shields, and that is never good. In comes the Sludge. I'm going to go for a full undercharge here, try our best to get as much energy as we can out of this matchup to salvage what would have been such a good situation. In comes the Fairy Wind down, so we do have a lot of energy here that we might be able to potentially use against whatever is in the backline, and we see it is going to be a Sableye. This Pokemon is such a tricky matchup into our Claydol, and that Azu as well makes it so Claydol has almost nowhere to go. I'm going to instantly swap out, though it seems like Jumpluff has a lot of play this game, and in comes the Azumarill. We still have a lot of energy left over on our Shadow Galarian Weezing, but they have energy on Sableye, and my Claydol is still asking itself, what is it going to do in this match? Acrobatics going to be thrown. Do they opt to shield up this attack, or will they save shields for that Sableye at this point? Acrobatics does end up getting a decent amount of damage into this Azumarill. In comes a second Acrobatics. Do they shield this up? They have to shield something. This is likely going to be the highest damage move left in the game. Our opponent does end up letting it go, and we get a full Fairy Wind down, which now means this Sableye is going to get a lot more energy, which could be tricky. With that said, we get yet another Aerial Ace off into the Sableye, and because we have so much energy across the board, I'm going to hope that I can go for a Brutal Swing before they can knock us out. But our opponent is so smart, they end up CMPing our Weezing, and now we have to hope either we can reach an I was going to say Aqua Tail. We don't have Aqua Tail on our Claydol. That'd be crazy. No, reach a Rock Tomb against this Pokemon, or Mudsap all the way down before they can reach two foul plays. Mudsap is a very offensive attack here. What are we going to be able to do? Is the next Mudsap enough to knock out? It just barely is. Right when they reach the back-to-back foul play, we can take the win in that match. Next game, Claydol up against Skeletorge. Very good lead matchup for us here, but our backline is a little bit soft to this. We see a Furt on the safe swap. I counter swap with my Galarian Weezing, but honestly, maybe I should have come in with my Shadow Jumpluff, mainly to avoid the matchup of that Skeletorge into our Grass-type Pokemon. With that said, we are still in a decent matchup here. Sludge is going to do a lot of damage. We resist the fast move pressure of Sucker Punch, but you always know whenever you resist Sucker Punch, it doesn't really look like you're resisting it because it's such a strong move. In comes another Swift. We will have to shield this up if I want to keep Switch, but I also know that Skeletorge is part Ghost type. They have access to Shadow Ball, which would do a critical amount of damage to our Claydol if we ended up letting it through. Unfortunately, don't barely reach this Fairy Wind down before we have to throw a Charge Move here, which means that we do knock out the Furret, but we are also in a range where the Skeletorge will get a lot of energy, and we will only get one Brutal Swing off against this Pokemon. We'll try our best, though, to chip down this Skeletorge before our Jump Up has to see it, and in comes a Lapras here. They do sidewave us down just barely before I can reach a Charge Move or swap out, and I just have to hope at this point that they are not running Ice Beam as a charge attack. If they were, this game's probably just an instant loss. We go for an Aerial's bait. What are they going to throw here? I have to no shield and just hope for the best. It is a Skull Bash, which does a critical amount of damage to us, but I think at this point that is the better scenario. If they went for Ice Beam, we would have been one shot, so we did kind of have to see that, but they go for a no shield on our Aerial's bait, which is so bad for us to see. I should have landed that attack. If I could have got that big damage off against them, then maybe we could still win this game, but this is looking so bad. We have to get a shield, though, with that next bait, and in comes another attack here from our Jumpluff. We're going to try to land this next Acrobatics if we can, and a Sparkling Aria will be shielded on our Shadow Jumpluff. Acrobatics after that defense drop or defense boost on this Lapras is not going to do too much damage to them. In fact, they end up no-shielding the attack, which is going to mean now they are in such a good position to potentially win this matchup. In comes that Skeletorge. Once again, Shadow Ball is super effective. It is stab. What is it going to do to our Claydol? It ends up knocking us out here, which I honestly thought I'd survive that move, but unfortunately not quite enough bulk, and GG's there to our opponent. Next matchup, another Swalot in the lead. Maybe I need to try out Swalot myself. I know it's a pretty cool Pokemon, but unfortunately, we are using the Shadow Galarian Weezing. I mean, fortunately for us, I love Shadow Galarian Weezing, but, you know, we're using a different poison type today, so maybe tomorrow, maybe in the next couple of days, I'll try out Swalot myself. We see a Claydol as a safe swap, so we go instantly for the Ice Beam on our own Claydol, and we try to catch a Charge Move here on our Jumpluff. Unfortunately for us, we caught an Ice Beam, so that does a ton of damage, which is not great for us to see, but because we are a Jumpluff still, we resist the fast move pressure, so despite nearly getting one shot, we will not get farmed down, and we can reach this Aerial's up against this Claydol. We don't draw a shield from them here, but that's fine. We still have access to a decent amount of energy, but in comes, that is not a Lapras, that is another Dugong today. A lot more Dugongs than I thought I'd see. I don't quite reach an Acrobatic, so I'm going to take the chip damage that I can here, go for that Aerial's, and see what our Shadow Galarian Weezing can do in this matchup. We know at this point Drill Run will do quite a bit of damage, and Icy Wind would do a lot of damage to our Claydol as well. So instead of doing anything crazy, I'm going to go instantly for the Brutal Swing. They know that this is not going to be a Sludge, but because I am not debuffed yet, it is going to do as much damage as possible. We do have to shield up a move here, so I will shield up a potential Icy Wind bait, but thankfully it is a Drill Run, so we did make the right play in that matchup. We have been a little bit chipped down by those Mud Slaps, which makes our life just a little bit more uncomfortable here as a Claydol. I think an Ice Beam will come very close to knocking us out, but Mud Slap is such an efficient fast attack. If I can land this Rock Tomb debuff against them, potentially put them into a nice Mud Slap down range, then all we need to do is Rock Tomb and then go for Sludge against that Dugong in the backline after Mud Slapping down this Swalot, and we should be able to win this game. With that said, I don't know if 3 more Mud Slaps will knock them out here. I have to hope that it is enough. If not, a Sludge will be reached, and this endgame will be a lot trickier. We barely get the full fast move farm down. In comes a Rock Tomb, and not only will this draw a shield, but it will guarantee if they do have a Drill Run that our Shadow Galarian Weezing should survive it. In comes the charge attack. We do draw that shield, and they don't even reach a charge attack here, meaning that this Sludge will knock out this Dugong, just barely finishing off the endgame and winning us in this game. Good stuff there from our Weezing and Claydol, putting in a ton of work into that Swalot. Next matchup, oh yes, we've seen this Pokemon before. Corviknight is not a pick that you really want to use against Claydol, although you do resist this Mud Slap damage if you let us throw the Rock Tomb first, which for some reason our opponent does do in this game. This matchup just gets so much worse for this Corviknight, as you're going to see. Rock Tomb doesn't quite get a 2-shot here, but I think that's actually kind of better for us, because in the Zero Shield matchup, if I can land 2 Rock Tombs, especially if you get a Rock Tomb off first, then I can go for a full Mud Slap down, basically come out with a full charge move against something in the backline. So this, honestly, is just such a good matchup for us here. We could have gone for another Rock Tomb there. I thought they were going to try to CMP us or something, so I didn't throw it instantly. Either way, we're able to go for the Rock Tomb now. I could have got a debuff on that Sky Attack, but with that said, Sand Attack is such a bad fast move here that they will not farm us down. We will farm them down, and Claydol able to easily beat the Flying and Steel-type Pokemon. In the back, I'm going to see a Mightyena, so I guess not quite able to get a charge move off against this Pokemon, but still we're in a very good spot where a Shadow Galarian Weezing can come in, and unfortunately 1-turn lag, meaning we will get denied a Fairy Wind, which might come into play here, because I know that Poison Fang is a very spammy fast attack attack, or charge attack that is, and because they do go for Poison Fang here, and since I got a 1-turn lag, I will not be able to take both shields from this Mighty Anna before their next charge attack will be reached. In comes the Sludge. Do they shield this up? I would assume so, saying they have the next Poison Fang, and as I was saying, because of that next, or that 1-turn lag that I ended up getting, we are not able to get both of their shields, which means, unfortunately, I do have to go down shields in this matchup, but I'm able to still get a full Fairy Wind down, but we see in the backline our opponent does not want to have all these Sludges loaded. Unfortunately for them, our Weezing is just too spammy. One Sludge does end up getting a shield. I have a second one ready to go, and now our Shadow Jumpluff is in a primed position to finish off this game. Despite that 1-turn lag, we're able to easily close out this endgame matchup there. GG's to our opponent. Next match, we're going to see a Claydol up against a Guzzlord. We've seen this matchup earlier today. Not the best case scenario, but definitely not the worst, because we have two Pokemon in the backline that just kind of destroy this Pokemon, and we see a Shadow Drapion counter swap into our Shadow Galarian Weezing. Does this trainer know that this matchup is not a good matchup for the Drapion, especially down energy? Maybe, maybe not. I go for the Brutal Swing now, because after landing that Sludge, they're in Brutal Swing range, but we did just see something very interesting here. This Drapion ended up winning CMP over our Shadow Galarian Weezing, because now I know they win CMP. This matchup is a little bit more awkward, where I'm pretty sure they're able to at least pressure shields against us, but because we do have that energy lead, we will still be able to get shield advantage. Will I get Poison Stung down here in the next 4 Poison Stings? That is a big question. I'm going to bank on the fact that Weezing is just bulky enough here to survive and reach the next Brutal Swing. In comes the Charge Attack. It does get their final shield, and our opponent, can they Brutal Swing this down? Or Poison Sting, rather, before Brutal Swing? They cannot. In comes the Charge Attack, which means somehow our Weezing not only flipped Switch advantage, but got us a shield advantage from that Shadow Drapion. Now our Shadow Jumpluff is going to come into this Guzzlord. I do have to watch out for potentially a Sludge Bomb here. I don't want to take a super effective Charge Attack if I can help it, especially seeming that our Jumpluff is a little bit of a core breaker since they are staying in this matchup. Brutal Swing does get a shield from us here. In comes the Azumarill. I go instantly for an Acrobatics, and despite this being a little bit of a tricky Pokemon to see, saying they have Ice Beam, I know that Jumpluff is going to be able to reach 2 Acrobatics against this Azumarill, and then our Claydol should be able to close out this endgame matchup. In comes yet another Acrobatics. Our opponent is going to have to let it go, saying they have no shields left, and I catch an Ice Beam on our Claydol. While this is super effective, Claydol is so much more bulky here, and only single weak to this Ice Beam rather than double weak like our Jumpluff, so instead of getting one shot, we're able to get a full Mud Slap down and force energy from this Guzzlord. I go for the full-on Ice Beam. Maybe I should have gone for the Rock Tomb, but I know if they knock us out here, they are going to be energy dry, and our Shadow Jumpluff should be able to close out this endgame just by going for an Acrobatics. I could go for Ace at this point, but I think Acrobatics is just the cleaner way to finish off this game, get a guaranteed knockout, and Shadow Jumpluff able to close out the backline after Shadow Galarian Weezing was such a beast and got a switch and shield advantage in this game. So yeah, with that battle here, we're going to see that this set put us over the top here, almost into range where we're in the 2800s. If I can catch this Dreepy here, we'll see 2796, so definitely a season high, and on the leaderboards, which were just released today, top 10 in the world. So Claydol, I didn't really have too many expectations for it here at the start of the season, but trying it out myself on a real team, this Pokemon is a menace. This Pokemon might actually be kind of worth the ranking that it has on PvPoke right now. Ice Beam is a very interesting moveset. Rock Tomb, one of the best attacks in the game, and just the raw bulk on a Mud Slapper is just kind of nuts. But yeah, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed the battles and you want to see more like this on the channel, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you again for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.